When I was in fourth grade, somewhere between 9 and 10 years old, my parents left me home alone for the very first time. It was the spring semester at Maple Grove Elementary in suburban Cleveland, Ohio, and a thunderstorm rolled in that afternoon so fierce it knocked out power citywide. My mom and dad had been invited to a last-minute gala at the mayor's mansion, less than 10 miles away. But halfway there they realized the roads were flooding. They reluctantly called me on our old landline. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart." My mother's voice trembled through static. "This thunderstorm's gone crazy and there's no point in us driving back. We're safe at the Petersons next door. Promise me you'll do exactly what I say." I was equal parts thrilled and nervous. No bedtime, unlimited candy, but also total responsibility. Mom rattled off her instructions, and I scribbled them on a sticky note beside the phone. "Lock every door and window. Close all blinds. Keep a lamp on in the living room. Don't answer the door for anyone." I promised and hung up. At first I ran around locking the front and back doors. Deadbolts, check, and tugged every blind shut. I flicked on the living room lamp, then plopped onto the sofa with my pillow, binge-watching cartoons until my eyes drooped. I was so tired I almost forgot to tidy up, but I kept glancing at the clock. 10:15 p.m. I'd get it all done right before bed, I told myself, but exhaustion won and I napped with the TV glowing. When I finally stirred, the late-night news was off. The living room heater had clicked out and the house felt like an icebox. I leapt to my feet. Oh, right, Mom's list. I patted my pajama pockets for my glasses, then tiptoed through every room, checking that each window was latched, every shutter drawn tight. I tapped and pressed against each pane. No drafts. Pleased with my thoroughness, I crept upstairs to my bedroom. My room sat at the far end of the hallway, carpet soft. Underfoot, rain pounded the skylight so hard I thought it might crack, and every few seconds a yellow flash of lightning turned the walls ghost white, followed by thunder so loud the floor shook. I burrowed under the covers but couldn't sleep. The storm was one thing, but then I heard it. A slow, groaning creak like an old tree swaying, only deeper, mechanical. My heart fluttered. That sound didn't belong to the storm. I sat up in bed, listening. It came again, a long, tortured groan, then a sharp crack, wood bending. My gaze snapped to the closet door. It stood just slightly ajar. I'd closed it tight before. I froze, mind racing. Someone had to be in the house. My parents were miles away. I swallowed hard, climbed quietly from my bed, and slipped down the stairs into the dining room. I dove under the big oak table, folding my legs tight, heart pounding so loud I thought it might burst through my chest. From above came heavy footsteps in soaked, muddy boots, sloshing, shuffling. My mind screamed, "Stay silent." But my breath shortened to tiny gasps. Then a distant clank. Something metal hitting hardwood. A wrench. My throat felt raw with panic. I peeked over the table's edge. 2 legs appeared. Dirty, yellow-tinted calves covered in scratch marks as if scraped through brambles. The intruder paused, then shifted forward. Slow, deliberate steps, closer, closer, until the table leg blocked my view again. I forced myself still, watching those legs sway. The intruder's boots scuffed the floor. I heard drawers creak open, random metallic rattles as they rifled through the kitchen. My hands trembled violently beneath the table, clutching my nightshirt. Finally, footsteps retreated upstairs. The front door yanked open and slammed. My whole body shook, every muscle quivering. I didn't dare move for minutes until the house fell utterly silent, save for the rain's relentless drumming. When I dared, I crawled out, wrench still on the floor. I slipped back upstairs, tiptoeing into my room, sliding into bed with my clothes still on. I stared at the closet door, now shut solidly, convinced that any moment it might fling open again. Eventually, exhaustion overtook fear, and I dozed, one eye half open, until bleary dawn light crept between the curtains. When the front door crunched with sneakers, I scrambled from under the covers and flew downstairs. My parents burst in moments later, apologetic and drenched. I stood in the living room, trembling, holding up my wrench. We've been calling our... You okay? My mom pressed. I swallowed, voice small. There was someone in the house? Her eyes widened. My dad frowned, ushering me close, dialing 911. They searched every room, even the crawl spaces. No sign of forced entry, no trace of the intruder, only muddy footprints fading in the foyer, then ending abruptly. In the scramble, my mom rediscovered her sticky note list. All the locks were tight, the blinds closed, the lamp on, yet somehow the intruder had slithered past every barrier. My parents traded worried glances as the police took my statement, cataloged the wrench, the footprints, never learned who or why. The storm cleared by morning, leaving soggy lawns and no answers. I did learn, however, that night forever changed me. I couldn't sleep without the hall light on. I triple-locked every door, and even now, when thunder rattles the windows, my mind still flashes to those yellow-tinted legs and the wrench's final clang, reminding me how fragile safety really is. I grew up as an only child in a spacious craftsman-style home on Maplewood Drive, right on the edge of suburban Seattle. My parents always joked they'd meant to have more kids, but between my mom's teaching career and my dad's aerospace, engineering job at Boeing, they never quite found the time. I was 15 when the most terrifying night of my life unfolded. It had been drizzling all evening, just enough rain to blur the streetlights and whisper against the window panes. Our neighborhood, normally quiet with row after row of tidy lawns, felt oddly alive under the steel-gray skies. I have some medical issues that make me a light sleeper. Frequent panic attacks, brittle blood pressure that can leave me dizzy, and an absolute need for total silence to fall asleep. No TV hum, no ticking clock, nothing. Rain, of all things, drives me crazy. People say they find it soothing, but I hear every drop like hammers on a tin roof. By midnight, I was wide awake, staring at the rain-streaked ceiling. Tossing and turning did nothing to quiet my racing mind. I finally slipped out of bed. No phone, no music, only the light drizzle beyond my rain-splattered window. I pulled on my hooded raincoat and tiptoed down the stairs, slipping out the back door into the cool night air. My parents had taught me to take late walks when I couldn't sleep, and I trusted my safe, well-lit park just 2 blocks away. Splashing along the sidewalk, hood drawn tight, I let the rhythmic patter of water fill my senses. After about 20 minutes, the fresh air finally lulled my eyelids heavy. I turned down the park entrance and strolled beneath dripping evergreen boughs, convinced I'd be home dozing within the half hour. Then I saw it. Something dark, long, and still lying flat, in the middle of Westview Lane, just beyond the park's edge. My breath caught. At first I thought, an odd piece of garbage bag caught in a puddle. But as I drew closer, I realized it was a person, face down and utterly motionless, soaking in the rain. Panic flared in my chest. I knew I should walk away, phone my parents, call 911. But they'd warned me. If I ever saw someone hurt, I had to help if I could. So I waded into the street, tiny rivulets of water swirling around my ankles. The figure wore dark cargo pants and a plaid flannel shirt, odd attire for a downpour. I knelt beside him, ice-cold rain dripping down my collar, and laid a trembling hand on his shoulder. Then, a blood-curdling wail erupted behind me. I spun toward the park, heart vaulting into my throat. The sound was neither human nor animal. A guttural, strangled howl shot through the treetops, echoing off the wet pavement like an angry spirit. I sank to my knees, frozen, throat tight. But the moment I glanced back at the street, my blood ran, ice cold. The man was up, sitting bolt upright, shoulders hunched, head tilted toward me in a ragged parody of a smile. His eyes glowed under the street lamp, black and empty as drain holes. He rose with agonizing slowness, revealing a long, curving blade like a kitchen knife clutched in one dripping hand. I don't know how I found the strength, but I sprinted. My raincoat slapped my legs, water sluiced into my sneakers, and the uneven pavement tripped me, yet I kept going. He called out, "I'll kill you," his voice a warped echo in the cold night. I cut across the park, through slick grass and under dripping branches, my lungs burning, every footstep stabbing my sides. Halfway through the woods, I tripped over an exposed root and skidded into a stand of ferns, Behind me came heavy boots, crashing through undergrowth. I crawled, scrambling for purchase, until I flattened myself against a mossy cedar root, barely breathing as he passed mere feet away. My heart pounded so hard I felt it in my fingertips. I waited, rock solid still, for what felt like an eternity. The only sound was that distant, watery thunder of rainfall. When I dared peek through the ferns, he was gone, vanished into the darkness. Shaking, I picked myself up and stumbled the long way home, avoiding the main path, slipping through a back trail that spat me out 3 blocks from my front door. I burst in, soaked and breathless, and slammed the deadbolt behind me. My parents, woken by my pounding heart and frantic crying, bundled me into blankets and called 911. By the time officers scoured the street, rain had washed away every footprint, every sign of struggle. The house across the way, where I'd found him, was empty and dark. No flannel shirt, no blade, no victim. My story was met with sympathetic nods, but without evidence. There was nothing they could do. I've never understood that scream. What creature or man could emit a cry so inhuman? Even now, years later, I shiver remembering that hollow howl. I don't run in the rain anymore, and I never wander through that park after dark. Some nights I still lie awake and swear I hear footsteps outside the window, slow, deliberate, and the faint drip of a knife's blade under the rain. Lock your doors. Stay off the streets when the storm rolls in. Because out there, beneath the streetlights and the pouring sky, there might just be something waiting for you. I'm 29, and ever since my terrible breakup, all I've wanted was complete solitude. No crowds, no trails marked on maps, just me in the wild. Northern California taught me where to find those forgotten stretches of riverbank, far from cell towers and weekend campers. A few months ago, heart heavy and spirit restless, I loaded my gear into my old Tacoma and pointed it toward a bend in the Trinity River I'd discovered last summer. It wasn't an official campsite, just a humble curve in the water you reached by following a washed-out Jeep track past nothing but sagebrush and empty sky. I pulled off that narrow, rocky road in late afternoon and came to a stop when I saw 2 pickups parked where I'd left mine last time. Gray and faded red, perfectly ordinary, and yet their presence stole my breath. I wanted to vanish into the silence, utterly alone. I sat on the tailgate, chewing my lower lip, debating whether to retreat for good. Then I thought, it's a big river and they're probably camped way upstream. I grabbed my day pack and slipped down the bank. The current's rush and the birdsong filled my head, and at first I convinced myself I'd never cross paths with those fishermen. But about 10 minutes on, I rounded a cluster of alders and froze. 2 men stood knee-deep, fishing lines in the golden water. Both were broad-shouldered and bearded, dressed head to toe in muted earth tones. No howdy hung between us, only the splash of their casts. I cleared my throat and offered a small wave. One of them froze, yanked a sleeve over something, half buried at his waist, then forced a half smile. "Hey, we're just shooting cans up the riverbed," he called hurriedly. "Didn't mean to spook you." The apology tumbled out like a bad habit, too fast, too nervous. My heart rattled in my chest. I nodded curtly and turned away. Their awkwardness gnawed at me. Maybe I'd imagined the way his voice trembled. Swallowing my unease, I pressed on, looking for a hidden cove. 20 minutes later, I found it. A flat bench of shale beneath a copse of cottonwoods. I pitched my tarp and hammock, dug my camp stove out of the pack, and tried to settle in. Rain began to pepper the leaves. Good, I thought. The rhythmic drip would hush my anxious thoughts. But as twilight bled into night, that clicking drip sounded too loud, too urgent. I climbed down to the river's edge to clear my head and caught movement across the water. The pale glow of a flashlight danced among the trunks, and there he was. The same nervous fisherman, but alone now, just staring. When our eyes met, he lifted a disposable camera and clicked. The flash was small, but bright enough to crack my spine. Then, without a word, he vanished into the dark. My chest tightened. I retreated to my hammock, zipped into my bag, and stared at the canopy above. But sleep fled me. Around midnight, a soft crunch betrayed someone circling my camp. Rain and river sounded nothing like deliberate footfalls. I unzipped my bag, slid out my pistol, always tucked into my sleeping pad, and slipped out of the hammock. The air smelled of wet pine and fear. I swept my beam through the trees, and there he stood, rain-slick jacket, face shadowed, in one hand a hatchet that glinted with each flash of my light. My heart pounded, but I raised my weapon. "Go on, get out of here," I barked, voice shaking, pistol steady. He cocked his head, expression blank, eyes too wide, too empty. Then he spoke in a slurred drawl that chilled me. "Ivan said you'd come back." My blood chilled. Ivan? Who was Ivan? I didn't wait for more. I fired one warning shot into the ground at his feet. The echo shattered the night. He stumbled back, surprise flickering across his features. I leveled the pistol again, voice low and hard. "Drop your axe now." He did, slowly, deliberately, and I watched it clatter wetly to earth. I forced him to kick off his heavy boots. No tracks of mine to follow, I told myself, and I frisked him, found only a pocket knife and a crumpled pack of Camels. Moisture slicked the ground as I gathered my kit in a fury, tossing his axe into the brush. When I finally felt safe enough, I sprinted blind through the trees up to my truck, bare-handed and heart-pounding. I vaulted inside, locked the doors, and peeled out onto the dirt road, rain-spattered headlights cutting through the gloom. I drove 2 hours before I found cell service. I called the sheriff, explained every detail, left trembling voicemails at every dispatcher line I could. The closest deputy told me they'd send someone when they could, but in that ghost town county, when they can, might be daylight, if then. I haven't returned to that riverside bend since, and I doubt I ever will. Months later, I still feel the weight of his empty stare, the hush of the river after the shot went off, the drip of the hatchet clattering. I don't know who Ivan is, or what he wanted me to find. All I know is that in the heart of nowhere, under a canopy of ancient pines, someone was waiting for me. And now every time trucks line that trailhead, my blood runs cold all over again.